What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is William Tackett and I'm a pro jiu-jitsu competitor here in Austin, Texas, and I'm reviewing a very high-level brain, Mike Israetel. He's an outstanding bodybuilder, jiu-jitsu athlete and competitor as well, and also just a wealth of knowledge. Definitely check out his YouTube channel, Renaissance Periodization. He's got tons of different critique videos, very similar format to this. This is actually where I got the idea, is his style of videos. So check out his YouTube. He's got some great stuff. We're going to be reviewing his jiu-jitsu today. He's a brown belt in this video we're going over, but he just got his black belt. So congratulations, Mike, on receiving your black belt. Not many people can say that they've gotten a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Hard thing to accomplish. In his first round, he's going against one of his friend bodybuilders, Johnny, I believe his name is. He has zero to little experience when it comes to grappling, so Mike should be able to kind of control him. But this will be a good test to see someone really strong if Mike's still able to use technique to kind of overcome. Let's get into it, guys. So it looks like they got a timer in the top corner. I'm not sure how long these rounds are going to be. They might just be going till submission. And we see a very lazy hand fight from Mike. A little back exposure, just kind of goofing off. That shows you that he's super comfortable on the mat against his friend Johnny here. And goes for the guard pull. So that wasn't the most graceful guard pull I've ever seen. Growing up competing in the IBJJF circuit, I've seen plenty of guard pulls throughout my career. And normally you want to establish some form of upper body control and pull your partner into a guard, not just kind of flop onto your back and then hope that they engage. Because if we're talking self-defense standpoint and you just lay on your back without any control, they can kick you until, the fight's over. If we're talking sport jiu-jitsu standpoint, in order to pull guard legally, you have to have form of control over your training partner or your opponent, have control over them, and then sit down to the ground, and then it would be considered an effective guard pull. So not going to hate too much on the guard pull here. He just wants to get the match going, and it's big props for him pulling to his guard because he is a big guy, and we don't often see guys who work from their back often. So let's see what kind of guard he gets into here. It looks like he's going to start playing with some half guard, which is a great choice for a bigger guy. And I'm a half guard player myself, so excited to see what he gets into from here. Solid frame, and uses that to punch his underhook. Liking it so far. Scooping the leg to get on his side. It looks like he has a really nice pinch on the knee line, which is important. Now, one thing I would like to see him do, though, with the pinch is switch his legs. So if we notice here, we can see his left leg is scooping his training partner's ankle, and then his right leg is kind of locking over the top to establish the figure four. I would like to see the opposite. So top leg being his right leg hooking the ankle, and left leg being the kind of the bottom leg establishing that figure four. That's going to allow you to kind of torque their knee and almost make their knee go down to the mat and their ankle come up off the floor. And that's going to allow a little bit more connection between their hips and you to where they're not getting too much space and kind of escaping from there. And will make it easier to get sweeps, pull them back to the other direction, or wrestle up. So he's probably going to still get the sweep here because it looks like he has really good control over the leg either way. And he's almost applying dog bar pressure. So if you guys remember my match at the West Coast Trials where I had a body lock and I was in top position, kind of in a half guard, and the guy was just kind of framing my face really hard, and I just dropped my hips down and got the dog bar finish. Mike's kind of doing this from bottom position, and this is a great way to sweep because if you start driving your hips into the kind of the front side of their knee and you're controlling their hips and controlling their ankle, then their knee's the only thing moving, so it's causing a knee bar pressure, and it allows for easy sweeps. So I do like to see what he's doing here. But I wish he would switch his legs and he can get a little bit more pressure, but also allow for like that torque in the knee. Lucas Leitch calls it the coyote hook, but there's plenty of names for it. Just basically scooping low at their ankle and trying to get a bend in their knee allows for a much easier sweeping process. But let's see what happens from here. So he actually goes out the back door. Nice. So he goes for that kind of deep half finish where he sneaks out the back door. And Johnny does not look like he wants to play off of his back. I mean, I wouldn't want Mike on top of me either. So totally understandable. But when we go for sweeps, we need to complete them. So going from bottom position and retaining top position is what we always want to focus on when it comes to competing. We see some heavy collar ties here by both guys. And Mike just decides to pull guard again and gets a really easy reversal. So this is a great description of someone that's trained versus someone that clearly doesn't know what they're doing. Mike pulls to the guard, and Johnny just kind of grabs him. Just kind of locks his hands really tight in some form of grip, which is okay if you're in a good position and you're not off balanced. But when you're off balance and you start to get rolled to the side like that, you got to eliminate one of your hands, your gripping hands, and make it a posting arm. So now that you can post on the mat, you can prevent yourself from kind of flipping over. Whereas there, he just kind of held his arms together and didn't have any post, and was his own demise because he's trying to just hold on to Mike. So good execution by Mike on using that off balance and coming to top position. And I love the fact that he went straight into close guard, because that makes it much harder for the guy to get back to their feet or escape and kind of turn their back and scramble, maybe get back on top. His first sweep, he couldn't secure his top position, so he forced the close guard, which is a great way to secure top position. You just need to posture up right away, get your hands off the mat, and kind of eliminate those risks like arm bars, triangles, and other things by getting a really solid posture here from the close guard. It looks like he's going for a body lock inside the close guard, which against Johnny's not a bad idea, but notice his elbows are on the mat. And now he's kind of in a half guard or side control, so it doesn't matter as much. But that was just because Johnny's legs weren't active and weren't keeping Mike trapped. And if he was keeping his legs like active and trapping Mike in his guard, and if he does keep his hands and elbows on the mat when Johnny has him locked up, he's at risk for things like omoplatas, go-go platas, any type of rubber guard variation, which isn't going to be awesome to have to deal with. So you can kind of avoid that altogether by keeping your hands in their armpits. I really like putting both my hands in my training partner's armpits when I'm low like that, because then now they don't have really control over my arm in the same way. And then an even better version would be to now walk your hands from their armpits back to their hips and posture up and keep your elbows locked out. But what he did here still worked. Given Johnny's skill level, he wasn't able to stop it at all. But I would like to see maybe in the close guard, hands off the ground. Looks like he might be going for an arm triangle here, but Johnny sinks that frame in. He's actually framing really well for someone that's new, using the frames to kind of keep Mike from isolating one of his arms and putting too much pressure. And Mike looks like he's going for a good crossface. I like this cross-facing pressure a lot, so I want you to notice how Mike's shoulder is turning Johnny's head to look away. Right, so that's really, really important, because if we can use our shoulder to make them look away, not only are we using a whole lot of our weight and pressure to make them feel like they're just being suffocated, but on top of it, if you're making them look away, then it's really hard for them to turn and face you. If they can turn into you, then they have a whole lot easier time getting on their side, getting their knee in, and establishing frames, and then establishing a guard. But making them look away like this is a great way to keep them from shrimping and establishing that guard again. So I really like this a lot. Something that I would really like to do, or I use a lot, and I really like to see Mike do, is use that hand that's behind the back of the head and walk your fingers along the mat until you get almost contact with their armpit. And then I like to use my hand now to go palm up and get a grip on that lat and armpit. Now you have a connection to where you can drive your shoulder into the back of their head, and you have an anchor now with your hand in their armpit to prevent your hand from slipping. Because if you drive your shoulder too much, then your arm kind of starts slipping out, especially if you start squeezing really hard and your partner's resisting. But if you have that grip on the armpit, when you start driving your shoulder, you're anchored in with that hand in the armpit, and it works really well for establishing really strong shoulder pressure, and you can actually start to choke people just using the shoulder pressure, similar to how you'd finish an arm triangle or a Von Flue choke. Looks like Mike's going for the can opener, though. He's got palm up with that left hand there. He's probably going to go S-grip. Oh, and he goes Gable. Yeah, that's not good. Oh, yeah, that looks brutal. Oh, man, yeah. I'm thankful Johnny tapped there, because that's not a fun position to recover from if you don't tap. I've had my neck cranked on plenty of times over the years, and I've tapped plenty of times, and I've not tapped plenty of times. And I always regret the times that I didn't tap. The only time I wouldn't regret it probably would be like in the finals of some $1 million tournament or something like that. But as far as this goes, just tap, live to fight another day, and you don't have to wake up too much with a neck ache in the morning. But the last guy I want to hit me with a can opener is Mike. I mean, he's got short limbs, very stout, clearly very strong, and that's a recipe for disaster, especially switching all the way to that Gable grip. So a good kind of description for you guys on different grip variations and how they kind of work is always the distance. That's the circle inside my arms here. So if I lock an S grip, that's kind of like the largest circle I can create while having a connection to my hands. And then if I switch off to what Mike did, which is the gable grip, notice how that circle kind of gets a little smaller with a gable grip. Gable is a palm to palm. And then once I start going wrist to wrist or butterfly grip, whatever you want to call it, that circle in between my arms gets even smaller, right? Even smaller. And then elbow to elbow makes it even tighter. So depending on what you're going for, you want to use the grip to your advantage. If you need more length, like you're trying to really reach around somebody and their hips are far, S grip's great, right? But if you're like in mount and you got their arm isolated above their head and you want to make the hole as small as possible so you're suffocating them, elbow to elbow is a great choice. So you can kind of play with the different grip variations based off of how much length you need or how much space you want to take away. And Mike switched to that gable grip, which made it so much more effective and a really, really tight submission there. All right, now we're moving on to the round 2 for Mike. I mean, he looked great in round 1. He used the half guard to get on top and was able to get his guard pass into that can opener. Looked brutal. He's working with his either coach or the head of this academy. I'm not exactly sure the entire backstory on this, but this guy is a black belt, very high level, and this will be a tough round. This will be a good test for Mike. If he can get some things going or not get submitted, it'll be very impressive because this guy's tough. We get a guard pull early by the black belt, and he elevates straight to butterfly. I love the fact that he elevates to butterfly. I think getting to butterfly against a bigger opponent is a great move because you're underneath their weight. And although it might not seem like a good idea to be underneath someone's weight that's a lot heavier than you, but it's much better to be balled up in a position where you're compact and strong underneath them to where you can lift and elevate them rather than being kind of squished out and spread thin and then their weight's on top of you. So being in like bottom half guard when they have an underhook and a crossface, you feel like you can never get them off. But when you have something like butterfly where you're balled up and you have underhooks and you have good positioning and you can use your hooks to elevate them and sweep them, they feel a whole lot lighter. So something like butterfly guard is a great use of guard against a big guy. So good decision on this guy's end. Let's see how Mike kind of stops it. It looks like a butterfly guard sweep's about to happen. Just your kind of traditional fall to the side and kick over. But if Mike drops his head down underneath this black belt's chin, he might be able to start to kind of sag on those underhooks, get his weight down, and prevent himself from being lifted. But we'll see what happens. He is sagging a little bit, but yeah, he gets swept. So that can be a problem, right? If you're sagging down and you're not able to drop your head down low and not able to sit your heels or your butt all the way back to your heels, and they keep lifting you and keep elevating you, they can get you to the side. And when I'm sagging, I'm normally trying to almost treat it like the bottom of a tricep extension. So imagine you have the two cables and you're rowing that tricep extension, and right at the bottom, you don't stop here, right? If you guys watched any of Mike's YouTube, you would know that he is a really big advocate of getting all the way that last stretch of the muscle tissue and really controlling the movement. Same thing here. You roll out and almost rotate your thumbs down and get kind of like that rotation. Same thing with the butterfly sweep. So if I allow him to keep my arms in his armpits when he's wrapping me up with overhooks, I can't post on the mat. But if I kind of rotate my thumbs down and my palms down to the ground and lock out my elbows as I start sinking back, then I can start kind of using my hands to post. And it'll make it a lot harder for him to eliminate that post rather than if my palm's facing the ceiling, my elbow's closed and my hand's far from the mat. So rotate that palm all the way down, lock out that elbow, and then you can start sagging down to prevent him from sweeping you. But he got his post eliminated and he got lifted and swept. But it looks like he's wrestling up here on a single leg. He gets to the turtle position. He's stuck in a front headlock, and the black belt runs behind, looking to get a crucifix. And this right here, I could see needing a little bit of work. I've been definitely impressed with a lot of my jiu-jitsu, but this part I want to add a few tips on. I'm a huge advocate for having a solid turtle attacks and defenses and using it as a solid position to score or look for subs, but you can't do that like this. Look how he's on one knee. He's got 1 foot up. His elbows are far from his knees. Yeah, he's controlling the choking arm with one hand, and yeah, he's maybe fighting the hook with the other hand, but none of his body is doing any of that help for him. It's just his arms. He's just trying to prevent the choking arm and prevent the hook with his hands. Rather than using his whole body collectively, I would love to see him put his forehead on the mat. And by putting his forehead on the mat, that makes his hands a whole lot more useful because he doesn't have to use them for posts. And then he can also, by putting his forehead on the mat, he can ball up really tight and use his elbows to block the hooks. So he won't need to fight the hook out if there's no space for the hook to go in. So using that elbow to knee connection from the turtle and keeping his head on the mat can make it a lot harder for this guy to get his hooks in. And then he can start initiating like a Granby roll or maybe like some type of turtle guard sweep, and he could get to top position or get out. But playing like this and like this almost combat base where he's postured up, that hook, notice how easily it went in, right? Like that hook on the right side there went in too easily, and now he's probably going to take the back. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, Mike's posting here. So notice, I mean, you can't really see here, but his hand's on the mat. His elbow's locked out. Put your elbow on the ground, elbow to your knee, and make it a whole lot harder for them to take your back or choke you. Gets the second hook in. And same thing here, right? His hands are on the ground and knees are on the ground. And he's probably like just really strong from here and not used to getting swept or turned over. But it's still a high risk. Like if someone's really good at power half, if you guys have ever been put in a solid power half, it feels like your neck's going to break off similar to the way that can opener works. And you have to get tilted over. I would love to see him just start like using the mat to peel this guy off. So fall to your side, get your shoulder on the mat, and use that to kind of peel him off. Yeah, he's fighting the hands here, but it's going to be hard to fight the hands if you're supporting your own body weight with your other hand on the mat. You're only fighting his hands with one hand. You know, it's much easier if you put your forehead on the ground. Now you can use both your hands to kind of hand fight from there and prevent from getting choked. So he could probably Granby. He does fall to his side. And they kind of cut the clip there. So we don't know exactly what happened, but it looks like Mike shaked him off the top, which I expect to be one of his strong suits because he was based out so strong. He's probably good at like getting people's weight a little bit too high and taking advantage of that and shaking them off the top. Good use of strategy, but I would love to see him kind of prevent a lot of that from happening before it did by keeping those elbows closer to his knees and staying tighter in the turtle position and make it a lot harder for them to start throwing those hooks in the first place. So we got Mike probably going to look for that body lock again. He looked like he was going for it in that first one pretty well, that first roll. But this is what I want you guys to kind of focus on here. All right. Look at Mike's toes. His toes are completely flat on the ground. The top of his foot, his laces are down. When your laces are down, you have no forward drive. Imagine trying to sprint on the top sides of your feet. You're going to roll your ankles and break your ankles. It's not designed to work that way. But if you curl your toes underneath you and you're driving off your toes, just like how when you load a sprint at the start of a race, then you can now drive forward. I like to keep that in mind when I'm passing too. So curling my toes underneath me and using that to constantly drive my weight into my training partner. Of course, you got to be careful with that, right? Because there's certain positions where you don't want to load your weight up onto them because that's how they sweep you, like the butterfly guard sweep. But there's a lot of scenarios like this one here in an open guard where it's good to drive your weight forward and make them carry your weight, especially if you're a big guy like Mike. Make them carry your weight, and that will lead to a fatigue factor and make it easier to pass their guard, but also just make you more mobile. You can stand up a whole lot faster with your toes on the ground. All right, so we didn't see the sweep there either. It looked like he kind of went for an arm drag and they cut it. Mike's going for that half guard again, but he misses the knee. But he's controlling the leg well. So I assume he's probably going to try to explode out and get onto top position. Holding the leg can be good, but it can be bad too. Because if someone is around your size, around your weight, or knows how to really use their pressure on top, you're never going to be able to like wrestle up with that leg. If they get a crossface and underhook, which they should while they're passing, that's a huge key that I always look for, is try to find the crossface and underhook while I'm passing to mount rather than mounting and then not having any control. So if he was able to control the crossface and underhook and then mount, this grip that Mike has would be completely useless. Mike would want to now switch to having, instead of a wrap on the leg, he'd want to switch to having a frame on the inside of the leg so he can push the leg away with his elbow and start forcing the half guard. He looks like a half guard player. He hit a really nice half guard sweep earlier on in the video. So getting that knee line in between his legs can allow for another half guard sweep. But we'll see what happens. I feel like he's just going to wrestle up from here. Yeah, I would like to see the black belt on top settle his weight a little bit more. Yeah, Mike wrestled up. But see, that's the downside, right? Is he wrestled up, but he didn't have much control, so he wasn't able to secure any form of top position. He's now probably going to end up back on his back or having to now exchange for takedowns. And it was 0 score. Like in a competition, we want to go from bottom position to top position. We don't want to go from like bottom position to like explode up and then they get away and then now we're still on bottom. We wasted all that energy. So pushing that knee, getting back to the half guard might have been a better decision because he could have swept from there and secured position a little bit tighter rather than just exploding and losing it and then wasting energy. Going for that body lock again. I love it. Very, very good so far. He does need to keep that connection though. Same thing as the turtle where you want to connect your elbow to your knee. The exact same with the body lock. So yeah, just maintaining that elbow to knee is going to make it a lot harder for this guy to slip his foot out and put him in the close guard. So that's something just to keep in mind. I love the chest-to-chest pressure. He looks like he's putting a lot of pressure here from this top position. But there we go. The leg slips out and they're back neutral. Mike going for the body lock again. And this is the thing. He's getting chest-to-chest. So it's awesome. It's a really hard skill getting past frames to get chest-to-chest. So I think it's better for you to try to just get chest to chest and figure out the rest later and develop those skills secondary, but you still can't only rely on getting chest to chest. You have to have skills once you're chest to chest. It's just when developing these skills, getting chest to chest maybe is more important because you can't really train those skills unless you're able to get there in training. So getting good at getting chest to chest like this, like Mike has gotten here, 4 or 5 times within this video, and that's 4 or 5 opportunities for him to get reps in on completing these passes. He just needs to work on those last few details a little bit more. Right here we see that elbow far from the knee. He's got good chest to chest positioning. He's high enough on the chest where the frames aren't really involved too much, and he's not too low either where he's kind of slipping off. So he's in a good spot, but I would love to see him kind of pull his training partner maybe a little bit more to his side and make it easier to clear that knee and also bring those heels close to the butt. We got his instructor fixing his hair there. That just shows you like the efficiency between the two. Like he's probably not even working up a sweat. But Mike's doing well. He's hand fighting well and again gets a chest to chest. So he's closing that distance really well. And I love to see that. Big takeaways from reviewing these 2 matches from Mike is something he does really well. We're going to start with that. And that's keeping people within his parameters. That's so important when trying to get good at jiu-jitsu early on. And if you want to become effective in competition as a competitor in the high level, you have to be good at keeping people within your game. And for me, let's give an example. Maybe that's like takedowns and guard passing and back taking. I want to keep you within that realm. And then we got here for Mike. Obviously, he's a half guard player. He loves getting chest to chest in top position. So those are really, really solid kind of barriers to keep the match in. If you're in your guard, no need to work in any open guard and kind of experiment with things that are not going to work well for you. Stick to the half guard. Half guard's great for establishing connection around your training partner, keeping them from kind of moving around and using their speed and athleticism to get past your guard. So half guard locks them down and allows you to use things like your strength and size to your advantage and work to get those sweeps. And then body lock passing is a great way to secure top position. They can't really stand back up when you have your hands locked around them. You can keep them flat. You can use your strength by squeezing them really tight, and you can start getting guard passes going. But elbow to knee would be something I'd like to see a little bit more. But he's really, really good at keeping people within his game and in his strong suits. I mean, he didn't get subs. He did a really good job fighting off the submissions, and when he was in bad position, he would explode and get back out. That's something that's also really important, is conserving a select amount of energy for when you are in those bad positions. Because if you spend all of your energy and effort in resisting the guard pass or resisting the back take, then by the time you get there, so tired, and they just choke you right away. Right? We don't want that. We want to have a little bit of energy left over in reserve. That way we can start fighting out and explode out. Like we saw for him, he got his guard passed. He knew it was coming, and he kind of set and waited. And then when the guy passed, he exploded and got out and used that as an opportunity to escape, rather than using all his energy beforehand and then getting flattened out, and then now having no energy to escape and getting subbed. So good strategy on Mike's end. I'm impressed, definitely. And if you ever want to train Mike, hit me up. I doubt this video is going to get you, but if it does, I hope that you enjoyed some of the critiques, and I hope everyone else watching learned something from it. And would love to train one day, Mike. That'd be a blast. Big fan of your work. And great job on the mats. Congratulations on your black belt. And I look forward to seeing more videos of you training or competing in the future. And if you guys like this style of content, comment down below if you have any additional suggestions on either my setup or my the way I do these videos, different topics and different things that you want to see. Comment down below, because I want the videos to be enjoyable for you guys back home. And don't forget on the way out to subscribe to the channel and check out my online school. I have a bunch of different content on there, like Q&As, webinars, and even instructional content that you guys can go over. And I think you're going to enjoy it if you liked this format of video. So give it a check. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.